Good morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz. Happy Friday to everyone watching today. We're going to be taking a look at some thunderstorms for the Queensland area and some heavy rainfall that is expected to materialise across the tropical northern coast. And we're going to take a look at what is now becoming Tropical Cyclone Lincoln over Western Australia. So a little bit to get through in this update, so make sure you stick around to the end. And if you are brand new to the channel, then please consider subscribing. And if you haven't already, then leave a like on the video as well. So we're going to zoom in to southeastern Queensland first, and we'll dive up the coast a little bit further to take a look at rainfall up there. But it's going to be a pretty stormy evening tonight for some areas. Also up towards the north, you're going to be seeing a little bit of rainfall fire. Now this is driven by a low pressure trough or front that's expected to move through Melbourne and New South Wales today, which is providing a little bit of relief to those very warm conditions that they've seen over there, and should also curb the insane fire weather conditions that they've been having in parts of Victoria as well that I saw on the news last night. So later today we're going to be seeing some thunderstorms fire up around Sydney, Canberra, and inland around Bega and so forth, south of Wollongong. They're going to be pretty isolated storms. They're not going to be widespread. They're not going to be too strong, but one or two of these systems could drop maybe 50 to 100 millimeters over a certain location. You know how some of these storms work. They just sit over a place for a couple of days, a couple of hours rather, and they dump an exorbitant amount of rainfall. And that's probably what we're going to be seeing from one or two cells today, but nothing too severe where we're seeing some major flash flooding emergency develop over a metropolitan area. But there still definitely could be some flooding up this afternoon. Up in the northern parts of New South Wales and southeastern Queensland, nothing too interesting happens tonight. There's maybe one or two thunder cells that fire up around Brisbane and so forth, and inland to Toowoomba and Roma, but again, nothing significant fires up here. Maybe a little bit of rainfall can be expected, but it's going to be a really boring night in terms of thunderstorms, and that's reciprocated on the Access G3 and also the Icon model, which are our two higher resolution forecast models that we use to predict thunderstorms here. Now we're going to take a look at Saturday night, because it does look like from Saturday afternoon around 12 p.m. local time, around lunchtime local time, the forecast starts to become very interesting in terms of thunderstorms. You can see we're going to be seeing this onshore flow associated with a low pressure system just offshore, which is going to be driving this very moist and unstable air mass ashore. Now, what that means is thunderstorms are going to be able to form in a very conducive environment for strong thunderstorms, which means when they do form, they're going to be able to intensify into supercell thunderstorms, and they will be dangerous storms. Some of these storms will go severe. They will be dropping heavy rainfall, damaging winds, and also large hailstones, and maybe even in one or two places, giant hailstones, especially along the trough, which will be very close to the coastline, probably up towards Grafton and Lismore. Actually, it's going to be in the extreme northern parts of New South Wales and also in southeastern Queensland. And then as these storms get themselves into Queensland, they don't look like they're too strong in terms of thunderstorm activity, but they could still be dropping this moderate to heavy rainfall over some locations, which will deliver rainfall accumulations over the next 3 days, probably up towards 50 millimeters. It doesn't look like a catastrophic event in terms of maximum rainfall, where we can see these super strong thunderstorms drop 100 to 150 millimeters over the next 3 days, but we'll likely be seeing some significant rainfall totals above 50, maybe even up towards 100 millimeters, and this is enough rainfall to be causing some flash flooding in locations and maybe even some riverine flooding. They've had a lot of rainfall up in northern New South Wales and also in southeastern Queensland so far in the last couple of months. So any extra rainfall, any extra significant rainfall totals generally go straight into runoff and can cause some pretty significant flooding, especially this time of the year. So I'm going to be watching these storms very closely. The Bureau of Meteorology has highlighted the risk of some severe thunderstorms here for tomorrow, but again, I don't think they've been upplaying the situation enough, because some of these storms, they do look quite dangerous. The setup that we have tomorrow looks very, very favourable. If we were to take a look at mid-level humidity as well, I mean, you're looking at humidity values approaching 100% through here, or at 100%. This is very, very conducive to thunderstorm activity, and it looks like they're going to have a birthday party up here. And even in the mid-levels, humidity looking really healthy here along what we call a dry line here, which is very dry air on the other side of a line essentially, and they're in very moist air completely on the opposite side of it. And when you get these really steep contrasting values of extremely low humidity in the mid-levels and extremely high humidity very close to each other, you can see some very strong thunderstorms blow up. We see it time and time again in the United States. We've also seen it before in Australia, and that's what happened with the Boxing Day thunderstorms. That's why they were so severe, because we had what we call a very strong dry line here. So these thunderstorms, they actually have a very favourable environment to form. I know a lot of what I've just talked about is kind of quite sciencey and maybe might not make sense to the average viewer, but essentially expect some pretty nasty thunderstorms to form in the northeastern corner of New South Wales and also in the extreme southern areas of Queensland around Warwick, got the Gold Coast, Coomera, Ipswich, maybe even up towards Brisbane as well, Toowoomba definitely, and maybe then as far inland as St George and Lightning Ridge in New South Wales. Those locations could be receiving some stronger than usual thunderstorms for this time of the year, so make sure you're keeping your eye out, watching the clouds, watching the Bureau of Meteorology's weather page, and just making sure that you're staying as safe as possible. Now we're going to jump up the coast here to locations between Mackay and Cairns, because it looks like we've got quite a bit of rainfall happening this weekend, and maybe even into early next week as well, especially Saturday by the looks of things. What's going to happen is we're seeing this low pressure system develop up around Cooktown, Moomba, Lockhart River sort of area, and it's got this very weak sort of onshore flow moving ashore. Now weak or strong onshore flows mean lots of rainfall. We're going to be seeing up to 400 millimetres fall for some locations, especially around Townsville, Cardwell, Ingham and Cairns over the next 24 to 48 hours or so. So by around this evening, the rainfall will definitely be picking up around Cairns and Townsville. Make sure you're leaving your weather reports in the comment section down below. I love reading them. They actually give me a very good hand in making this video, because if I see an astonishing weather report, I go straight to that location, and you can bet that your location doesn't miss out if you've got some pretty nasty weather going on. So make sure that you are leaving your weather reports in the comment section as well. And then Saturday morning, it really looks like we've got this extreme amount of rainfall moving ashore between Townsville, Ingham and Innisfail, and this looks like some really nasty amounts of rainfall. To be fair, we could be looking at up to 50 millimetres an hour in some locations here. I haven't seen rainfall like this on the forecast since, well, I mean, Cyclone Kirrily was a bit of an exception, but since Cyclone Jasper's remnants started to stall, I haven't seen rainfall up here at this intensity. So it's going to be quite a wet weekend, especially a wet Saturday before this looks like it jumps down the coast Saturday evening, and it drenches areas around Mackay and inland around, Yalbaroo as well. It looks like Proserpine and Airlie Beach miss out, but it will go as far south as Harvey Bay, and areas around Bundaberg, Gladstone, Rockhampton, and up towards Ogmore as well. They look like they received some pretty significant rainfall totals. How much rainfall I hear you say? Well, over the next 5 days, we'll be seeing rainfall accumulations around Bundaberg, Rockhampton, Gladstone sort of area, approaching 100 millimetres. Nothing crazy, but nothing small. And considering it will happen over a 12-hour period, the risk of flash flooding and also riverine flooding certainly stays there. But the majority of the rainfall will be falling around Townsville, Ingham, Cardwell and Tully. We could be seeing up to 200 to 300 millimetres fall. I reckon the Access G3 model might have the more accurate picture in terms of rainfall, considering it is a convective model, and this is what this is. It's going to be a convective event with thunderstorm activity, and the Access G3 model is calling for up to 400 millimetres. Generally speaking, the Access does overestimate rainfall normally, especially for tropical cyclones and tropical weather, so 400 millimetres might be a little bit on the bullish end, but I would definitely treat this as if there was 400 millimetres coming in for areas, especially around Innisfail and Tully this weekend, because it's a great way to be sort of prepared. And I do also apologise for the relatively short amount of notice that I have given on this weather event. I've been really tied up with Cyclone Lincoln right now, and also work as well. But you've got today to really iron out, I guess, a preparation plan, a flood plan or so forth. Just make sure that you've got, in tropical northern Queensland, it goes without saying to always have a couple of days of canned food on you at all times, just in case you get flooded in a surprise event like this. But just make sure that you are playing things safe in a situation like this. If it is flooded, forget it. There is no point risking your life and becoming a statistic for a couple of 100 millimetres of rain, because it will be a little bit of rainfall, that's for sure. Nothing that this area hasn't seen before, might I add. It's nothing crazy, but 400 to 500 millimetres in a day, that is definitely pushing it, and it's the upper echelon of how much rainfall that these locations do receive in a week. So quite a lot of rainfall coming ashore there. Now, I don't want to neglect Cyclone Lincoln. I nearly called it Cyclone Jasper. I'm living in the past, that's for sure. But over the next 10 days, nothing too extreme in terms of rainfall. We'll be taking a look at this rainfall swath that's going across Western Australia. That's another cyclone, but we'll take a look at that briefly later on. We're going to take a brief peek at Tropical Cyclone Lincoln. It's going to make landfall, I think it's Sunday morning around Mingaloo or Coral Bay. We've got a cyclone warning in place for locations between Exmouth and Mardee, including Onslow. For Karatha, it has since been dropped. It also includes Barrow Island, might I add, and inland towards Panawancio and Lyndon. And then we've got a cyclone watch in place from Coral Bay down towards Carnarvon and inland towards Gascoyne Junction. I don't think it includes Gascoyne Junction, though. But we're expecting a landfall to occur. I'll switch it over to the nicer imagery. About there where the cursor is, just south of Coral Bay. And all of the forecast models are sort of starting to line up with that forecast. This is what ex-tropical cyclone Lincoln looks like right now. It isn't a tropical cyclone. It looks hideous for a tropical cyclone. I don't think it even blew up cyclone winds across Rowley Shoals, which we will take a look at that now. It got to 55 kilometers an hour, which is relatively strong considering the storm passed kind of close to it. So it's definitely close to becoming a tropical cyclone, but it didn't quite get there as it moves through Rowley Shoals. And it's expected to become a tropical cyclone later tonight. If we take a look at the forecast wind speeds right now, I definitely reckon that the models have done a good job at initializing it, which means getting its current forecast right, and I reckon it's just going to gradually intensify up towards landfall now. It's kind of starting to exit out of the really good conditions for tropical cyclone intensification, and it's just moving into average conditions now, so I'd be surprised if it did anything crazy from now, but I reckon it's just going to gradually intensify until it makes landfall around Mingaloo or Carnarvon, and it looks like it even dies right before it makes landfall and then crawls down the coastline around Shark Bay, then inland towards Kalbarri and Murchison. I am looking forward to the rainfall that this storm drops. I cannot wait to see how much rainfall it drops over Perth. I'm expecting 10 millimeters personally, but it does look like this system that might surprise us and drop 50 millimeters. We're going to have to wait till Sunday, or I think it's afternoon or evening, to really see what's going to happen here. But yeah, I am excited to see how much rainfall that this system drops. And it is going to give a little bit of relief to the heat up here today. But Perth is not the focus. It's definitely going to be the landfall site. We'll switch it over to the Access G3 forecast Sunday morning, or maybe it's Saturday evening that it makes landfall. You can see it's still a fully fledged tropical cyclone, or near enough at this point. I mean, it's got some pretty strong wind speeds around its centre, and it's making landfall just south of Coral Bay. It's nowhere near as strong as what we initially thought. It looks like Exmouth might actually be spared of tropical cyclone winds. This is definitely what I'd call a bust system. For locations between Onslow and Carnarvon, though, expect tropical cyclone conditions this weekend, probably starting from tonight, for the extreme northern parts of Exmouth and also for Barrow Island. Expect some tropical cyclone conditions, especially cyclonic wind gusts. And yeah, for locations around Coral Bay and down towards Mingaloo as well, expect Category 2 conditions. It's not going to be a severe tropical cyclone. It'll be a weakening system as it makes landfall, and it's not going to be too crazy. But yeah, anyways, that is the latest that I have on this system. In terms of rainfall accumulation, nothing too significant. The Access G3 model generally overestimates, but still the Eastern will be calling for about 100 to 150 millimeters for some locations. Hopefully just a butt ton of rainfall for Perth. It looks like my location completely misses out. I'm right down here around Secret Harbour. But the Access G3 model has called for quite a bit of rainfall to fall around Perth, up to 100 millimeters in some locations. I reckon that might be a little bit too bullish at this point, but I am praying for that kind of rainfall to fall around Perth. And as promised, we'll take a look at this rainfall swathe up here. There's nothing too eye-catching in terms of strong tropical cyclone activity, but it looks like a tropical low tries and spins itself up over the Kimberley by around next Thursday and Friday, and it becomes a tropical cyclone briefly before a landfall on Port Hedland. Now, this is one of those systems that we just need to be watching. It will likely be killed off in the next forecast, or it could stay on the next forecast. We'll just have to be watching. If this is still a thing on our forecast by Monday and Tuesday, then it's definitely a system that we'll be watching and giving advice and warnings over. But apart from that, nothing else happening around Australia right now. It looks relatively quiet, minus a couple of thunderstorms in New South Wales and Queensland. Let me know what you want me to look at in the next forecast, because apart from Cyclone Lincoln, there's not going to be too much to take a peek at. And if you've got any questions, then also leave them in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for your company this morning. I hope you have a great Friday. Bring on the weekend, that's for sure. And I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye. Oh yeah, and also, just before I go, do you reckon I should bring back the face cam just to make these videos a little bit more interesting? You know how I had it in the last updates or so forth, like about a month ago? I forgot it a couple of times in a row, and then I've just completely forgot to add it back. So if you want to see it again, then also tell me in the comment section down below. Anyways, I'll catch you on the next storm. Goodbye.